Hello everybody and welcome back to your mix of dead meat, found flicks, Wendigoon, and Mr. GG, but a little bit worse than all of them. My name is Kingnusmi. Grandpires is one of the most creative episodes of the Haunting Hour by far. Imagine you go visit your grandparent, who's like 90 years old, and you walk in the door and you find them violently eating somebody. That doesn't happen in the episode. It'd be wild if it did though, right? Even though this episode is in season 3 of the Haunting Hour, one of the least watched seasons I've heard, it is a fan favorite, and it's even a favorite of R.L. Stein's, but that comes from the fan wiki, so I would take that with a grain of salt. And there are many reasons to love this episode. It is goofy, creative, fun, and can be pretty scary at times. But the biggest reason to love this episode is because it stars the famous Christopher Lloyd. Yes, you heard that right. Christopher Lloyd of Food Fight fame. I can't believe they got this guy. On a real note, he is in a lot of really good movies like Back to the Future Parts 1, 2, and 3, the Addams Family movies, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and so much more. He was even in a somewhat forgotten R.L. Stein movie called Good Ghouls Go Bad. Let me know if you want to hear me talk about that on my channel. But anyways, that's enough yapping. Let's get into the episodes. We start the episode with a denture jump scare. That's a new one. And this whole scene is kind of jarring and a little confusing and hard to watch. I've never had a panic attack, but if I had one, I'd imagine this is what it feels like. It looks like this kid named Mike is visiting his grandpa who is actively dying. They sit together and have a meal, and this is when Grandpa reminds Mike that he is stuck in this mortal coil.
You can't escape the clutches of time.
But luckily, it was just a daydream, or a daymare, I guess. Mike wakes up in the car with his sister, Kristen, and they're a little lost. They're trying to visit their grandpa who lives in a retirement community called Sunset Estates. And apparently nobody visits the poor guy, and he's getting a little depressed. And Kristen is very adamant about visiting their grandpa because they might not have much time with him left, and also he's sad. But Mike just can't fathom old people.
I just don't get how they can be so happy when they're so old.
Everyone knows when you turn the age of 65, you morph into Scrooge and hate everything. And Kristen answers his statement with a morbid but true statement.
Maybe it's because they know they're not long for this mortal coil and want to enjoy it while it lasts.
And after a little while, they finally make it to their grandpa's retirement community. And side note, I don't know if this is an Easter egg or if it's just like a coincidence, but the sign says, "Spend the twilight of your life here." Like I said, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not certain, but I think this is an Easter egg referencing Twilight, you know, the famous vampire movies and books. I think that's what it's referencing. Let me know what you think in the comments below. They try to buzz into the security office, but no one answers.
Hello?
For a second at least, and then this weird guy barely opens the blinds and then just buzzes them in. Not a great security guard, if you ask me. They pull up to their grandpa's house and they notice that nobody's outside. There's no people walking or anybody talking or anything. Kristen compares it to being in an apocalypse.
Empty, barren, utterly hopeless.
But they brush it off as old people being old and maybe asleep. So they go onto the porch and ring the doorbell. But when Grandpa doesn't answer, Kristen just lets herself in.
Mom gave me her spare key.
They walk in and find the house is really dark and it has a weird smell in there. Kristen tries to let in some light by opening the blinds, but they're glued shut. This is when the kids hear a TV on in one of the back rooms. They open the door and they see their grandpa sleeping. At least I hope he's sleeping.
He's cold.
Oh no. There is no way they put a scene of 2 kids finding their dead grandpa in the house in this Haunting Hour kids show. Like, there's no way. That's so Oh, thank God. I got worried there for a second. Grandpa Walt wakes up and is pretty confused at why there's people in his house. But Kristen gives him a pretty good answer.
We came to surprise you and then we thought you were dead.
Luckily, Grandpa Walt is okay. They all gather in the living room, and this is when Grandpa Walt immediately notices that his blinds are open. He tells the kids that he keeps them shut because the sun hurts his old eyes. But Kristen doesn't care. She thinks some sun will be good for him. Oh, if only she knew. And Mike is still a little freaked out about the dead body scare earlier. Like, why does he look like he's shell-shocked right now? And after a short conversation, Kristen forces Grandpa Walt to go on a walk. But Grandpa doesn't seem too happy about it. He even tries to get the kids to leave because he says, "Oh, it's getting late. You guys should really be getting home." But no, Kristen insists that they go on a walk together. So finally, Grandpa agrees. And on their walk, we see that all these old people are finally out of their houses. That's a bit weird. You'd think they'd walk around when the sun is out. And as they continue to walk down the street, the old people start acting more and more strange. And this old dude even just starts blatantly following them. I don't think this guy is gonna catch up to them. And this whole walk scenario has Grandpa Walt in a state of paranoia. That is until they get stopped by...
What have we here?
These two old ladies named Shirley and Gladys. Wait, no, Gladys? What kind of name is that? And apparently Gladys stinks because Walt immediately tells her how bad she smells.
You don't like my signature scent?
The old ladies start getting a little too friendly with Kristen, and Grandpa Walt does not like this, so he tries to hurry them away. But Gladys, or is this one Shirley? I'm not sure. One of them tries to make a last-ditch effort to invite the family to bingo night tonight, with Walt kindly turning it down. Whoa, maybe he can catch up to them. The family make it back to the house, and Mike still can't fathom how old people exist.
Don't you hate aging, like, so much?
Mike, I'm pretty sure if he could stop aging, he would, my guy. But when they get to the house, they see that Grandpa Walt has a package. Meals by mail. I guess it's kind of like HelloFresh, which is the sponsor of... That's a joke. I'm too small to get sponsored. But it is a mail delivery service, which Grandpa Walt strangely takes into the garage. Just a bit weird. Kristen thinks so too.
Why is he taking his meal to the garage?
After a while of waiting inside, Kristen starts to worry about her grandpa, but Mike doesn't care. He just wants to go home.
Can we go home now?
And as Mike and Kristen are talking, they start hearing strange noises coming from the garage. Kristen sneaks into the garage and finds her Grandpa Walt eating a rat. Ew! This is when Kristen finally notices what her grandfather is.
You're a vampire?
Back inside, Mike patiently waits on his sister while she's being held captive by Grandpa Walt, begging her not to scream.
Don't scream. I won't hurt you.
While holding back the urge to eat his granddaughter. Wow, that's a fucked up sentence. After a second, Walt finally lets her go and apologizes to her. He says that the urge to eat her was so strong because she interrupted him in the middle of him eating. But he only eats small animals like birds and rodents, even though he admits human blood tastes good.
Rat blood doesn't taste as good as human blood, but if you don't want to hurt people, there's nothing else to eat.
That means he had to have tried it. But Mike is tired of waiting and he's getting a little hungry, so finally he's had enough and he decides to get up and go to the garage. But right before he opens the door, Nosferatu and Count Chocula ring the doorbell. And they try so hard to get Mike to invite them in so that they can suck his blood, but he has no clue that they're vampires and he has no clue what's going on. But they need to be invited in because the old vampire rule. So it leads to one of the funniest sequences of the haunting hour period. And in the end, they don't get to have the delicious children's blood. I don't like how I said that. Back in the garage, Kristen quickly comes to terms with her grandpa being a vampire, even giving him a little nickname.
You're like my grandpa?
Grandfire? Ah, that's cute.
But Grandpa Walt knows that he would scare Mike if he lets him see him like this.
He is totally gonna poop his pants when he finds out.
So he wants to introduce it to him slowly by telling him the story of how he became a vampire first. Like I said before, Mike is getting peckish and he really wants to go home. But it looks like they're not going home just yet. Or at all, actually. Because Mike needs to get over his fear of his grandpa.
I'm not afraid of Grandpa.
You will be.
And well, if they're gonna stay here overnight, they need to get some food because it doesn't look like Grandpa has any. So Kristen gives Mike their mom's credit card and tells him to go down to the supermarket down the street and grab a few pizzas. And on the way to the market, it looks like someone's following him. Back at home, Grandpa is finally ready to talk to Mike. But when he comes out of the garage, sadly, Mike isn't back yet.
Back from where?
Kristen tells him the whole situation, and based off of Grandpa Walt's reaction, I don't think this is good. This is when Grandpa reveals to Kristen that he's not the only vampire in the community. Far from the only vampire, actually. So, for Mike's safety, they hop into a golf cart and race over to the supermarket, going so fast that the cops even pull him over. That daredevil Walt was going a whopping 24 miles an hour. Sheesh, don't let Neon in the cart with him. And this is when we meet another important character, Officer Harold. And I don't think Walt and Harold like each other too much. Harold says that he won't give him a ticket if Walt lets him have some of Kristen's blood. But Walt's not having that.
This is my granddaughter. She's not on the menu. Got it.
So he takes the ticket for going 24 in a 9. In a 9? Why is the speed limit 9? That's so stupid. And moves on with his day. Or night. Mike makes it to the market okay, but the longer he walks down the aisles, the more of a crowd he seems to gather. And I don't think they want to compliment his sweater. After a second of walking around, Mike decides to ask one of the workers if there's actual food in this place, but he's just met with a sample of human blood, which he kindly declines.
It smells like my gym class. No thanks.
Then he notices that he's gained a crowd.
What?
Obviously terrified, Mike tries to run out of the store, but he finds that the doors are locked, and the grandmas are only getting closer. Oh Oh, come on. It was just getting good. So yes, this episode was supposed to be a 1-episode thing, but the writer Eric Patterson said that it had to be a 2-parter because it just had so much story to tell. And I kind of agree. I think that this could be like a whole series on its own. A grandpa vampire and 2 kids hanging out, getting into mischief. Maybe they could have done like a crossover episode with My Babysitter's a Vampire. That would have been fucking sick. But luckily, the second part starts immediately where the first one left off. So let's hop right back into it. Mike notices a mop nearby, so quickly grabs it and uses it for self-defense. And luckily at this time, Grandpa Walt pulls up, and he wastes no time in ripping the doors open, grabbing the mop out of his hand, breaking it over his leg, and using it as a stake to threaten the old ladies. On his way inside, though, he told Kristen to wait outside by the dumpster.
Just because I'm a girl, you think I can't help out?
And while waiting outside, Bert and Ernie appear from the shadows and say some pretty strange things to Kristen.
I'd say you look rather moist and succulent.
Yeah, she's definitely on a list in most states, but more on them later. Back inside, the grandmas didn't listen to Grandpa Walt, so... Wait, didn't he just technically murder that woman? Is that not illegal in this community? While fighting the grandmas, Grandpa Walt shows his fangs off, inadvertently showing Mike that he is a vampire too.
You're a vampire too.
So much for easing him into it, right? And Mike is such a scaredy cat that he literally just runs away from his grandpa, who is actively protecting him. And while on the run, Mike does come up with a pretty smart idea. He grabs a gallon of human blood and starts pouring it on the floor to maybe distract some of the grandmas, and to mask his own smell to make him harder to find. If only he did it a little bit faster. It does trick these two though. But Wheelchair Grandma ain't falling for that obvious trap. She speeds past the stupid old ladies and laser focuses right in on Mike. All while Grandpa Walt murders the rest of them. Mike tries his best to hide in with the toilet paper, but of course, Wheels finds him. So Mike pulls out the classic medieval technique, throws shit at him, and starts hurling toilet paper at the old lady, which gives him time to escape.
Having a sale on 2-ply paper towels.
Walt and Mike run into each other once again at the store, but Mike is still too scared to approach his grandpa because he thinks he's going to kill him.
I would never kill you. I'm your grandpa.
Kristen made that up, didn't she?
But after a bit of reflecting and a small conversation, Mike finally realizes that his grandpa is not gonna hurt him, and they hug it out and decide to go home. But first, they have to grab Kristen. Where is Kristen?
I told her to wait right here.
Dude, rookie mistake.
Mike finds her phone laying next to the dumpster, broken, and the dumpster has blood dripping out of it. Oh no, that's not good. Grandpa Walt slowly opens the dumpster and...
It's not Kristen.
Wait, there was an actual dead body in there? Grandpa Walt sniffs around for a second because he smells a familiar perfume, Gladys's perfume, and Walt instantly figures out what's going on. Every bingo night, they give away a rare prize, aka children or a person. And for tonight, Kristen is the grand prize. Walt and Mike hop on the golf cart and race to Gladys's house. Apparently, Gladys has a cage in her house that everybody just knows about, and that's where she keeps the prize until it's time for bingo night. Grandpa Walt believes that if she has Kristen, then Kristen will be in that cage. So she just has a cage in her house. Is that not weird to you guys? But he doesn't know for certain, and he's not even sure if Gladys took her. So he needs more proof than just blaming them for it. So the plan is to get invited in, because he's a vampire. Then they look around and try to find clues, or even better, Kristen. They pull up to Gladys's house, and luckily she's not home, but her husband is.
Time to apologize for your attitude?
God, not this guy again. And this dude wastes no time in admitting that he wants to have Mike as a little snack.
You bring me a snack, Walt.
Once again, Grandpa Walt reminds him that his family is off limits and they're not on the menu.
Got it.
They ask where Gladys is, but sadly she's not home. And Harold doesn't know where she ran off to either. Grandpa Walt asks if they could come in, but Harold won't let them in. Using his quick thinking, Mike comes up with the excuse that he really has to use the bathroom and he needs to go inside because he won't make it to his grandpa's house. So Harold lets Mike in but denies Walt entrance. Walt doesn't trust Harold with his grandson alone, so he tries to convince Mike to just come back outside, that they'll find another way. But Mike doesn't listen. He just says,
I'm fine.
Grandpa Walt then reminds/threatens Harold that if he touches a hair on Mike's head, then he will kill him.
I'll wait here for you. And the moment you step outside, I'll destroy you.
Damn, Grandpa, I hear you. And I'm not gonna lie, he turns into a badass in this moment. Inside, Mike starts to sneak around in hopes of finding his sister. And after trying a few doors with no luck, he finally finds the cage room. This is actually some deep web looking shit. That's horrifying. It looks like his sister was here because her jacket's on the floor, but she's not there anymore. So now he just has to get out without being caught.
I thought you had to go. Bad.
Outside, I think Walt can sense that something is wrong inside because he pretty much begs Mike to come back outside to him. But as he's calling out for Mike, Gladys comes home. She accidentally left the bingo cards inside the house, and so she went to go grab them quickly. But this gives Walt the perfect chance to have some leverage. Harold talks to Mike about how his grandpa isn't stronger than him, even though he thinks he is. He's not stronger than him because he's a new vamp and they're always weak. But Harold is
273 years old.
Damn! Since he's that old, he's strong enough to take Walt down without breaking a sweat. And Harold is very hungry, even referring to Mike as food this whole time. Mike then pleads for his life, but Harold doesn't care. Luckily, Walt stops him just in time. Walt and Harold have a bit of a standoff because Walt has Gladys and has a stake to her heart and is threatening to stab her if he doesn't let go of his grandson. But Harold is really hungry. He tries to bite Mike once again, but luckily Gladys stops him and talks him out of it. And before Gladys can walk over to the rec center, Walt decides to ask her if Kristen is there. And sadly, it is too late and she's in the bingo hall. So they head over to the bingo hall to save Kristen, and this is when we get a little bit of backstory about Walt. The other old lady, Shirley, is the one that turned Walt into a vampire, and she is over 800 years old. That's when the Renaissance was starting, I think. She is the oldest and strongest vampire there, and there is nobody that can even come close to beating her in a fight. Before they go into the bingo hall, they make a plan, but we will see that plan here in a second. As I woke up to buy some bingo tickets, Gladys accuses Walt of being a bloodaholic.
Well, it's not a BYOB event.
Not gonna lie, when I first watched this and she said that, I was confused. I was like, oh, she means blood. Gladys almost doesn't let them into play because Shirley will surely be very mad at her. But Walt tells her, if my granddaughter is the grand prize, then I should be able to have the chance to win her back. So she lets them in, but overcharges them for the bingo cards and also makes Walt pay an extra $5 for bringing a guest. She definitely knows how to haggle, I'll tell you that. In the bingo hall, we see that Kristen is tied up in a chair on stage, and Shirley makes her tell everyone her age, so they know how fresh the blood is, I think. And when she tells them, they act like Glinda down the hall made some chicken and dumplings or something. Next, we get a surprisingly intense montage of old people playing bingo, and in the middle of playing, Walt and Mike engage the plan. Mike walks to the back of the room, but
Look who it is.
come on, man, just leave him alone. Even your wife is tired of you picking on him.
Let him alone. He's paid for his cards.
Apparently, Mike is safe from bloodshed because he bought bingo cards and he's participating in the bingo game. They really take bingo seriously here. Mike walks to the clock in the back of the room and gives Walt a thumbs up. Walt calls a false bingo to distract everybody while Mike turns the clock back 1 hour. Now, the plan to save Kristen is set, and it's going perfectly. Nobody suspects a thing. Well, almost nobody. Harold seems to be the only one that's noticing that this game is taking a little bit longer than normal. But luckily for us, Gladys just tells him that they still have 2 hours of nightfall and she's having fun, so he can fuck off. And that pisses him off, so he decides to go to the lunchroom for a snack. Another intense montage later, and
Bingo, bingo. I won.
time for the plan to commence. Mike gets up, tells his grandpa to hide under the table, so he does. Mike starts to walk to the back again when Gladys stops him this time. Now that bingo is over, he's free game, and Gladys is the first one to notice. But Mike is not letting this happen, and he doesn't want to lose his sister, so he yells, "No!" and rips open the curtains, exposing everybody to sunlight. And one by one, they all turn to dust like the Avengers. But finally, they've defeated the vampires, and they can untie Kristen and leave safe and sound. Or so you think.
Looks like I get the prize.
Turns out Shirley found a hiding spot and hid there before the sunlight could touch her. And since she's the strongest one there, she can have the kids as a snack. Never mind. Okay, now that every vampire is dead, the family can finally go home.
Very impressive.
Oh, for Christ's sake. I forgot Harold was in the lunchroom grabbing a rat snack. Luckily, Harold doesn't care that they just killed everybody in the community. Even though he killed literally everybody in the community, Harold's letting him off the hook. It doesn't make sense. What about your wife?
Didn't realize how liberated I would feel without Gladys.
You spent 200 years with this woman. You're not like a little bit angry that he killed her? I don't know. He's weird, man. He just asks the family to clean up their mess and then he leaves. As the family sweep up all the dust, Mike tells Grandpa Walt that he's actually very happy that they came to visit him this time. It's just very sweet. But now, since it's daylight outside, they're stuck in the rec center with their grandpa until nightfall. So that gives them plenty of time to make the place spotless, right?
Werewolves hate a messy rec room.
And that's how the episode ends. Such a fun story of the Haunting Hour. One of the best episodes. I love that they tied werewolves into the end of it. Once again, I think this episode would be like a great pilot for like a whole kids show. Just like vampire grandpa and the kids getting into mischief. I think that'd be so fun. And since they introduced werewolves right here at the end, they could have any monster in the show. come on, make it happen. I think any monster would work too, because old people vampires is probably the wackiest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's also cool to see Christopher Lloyd agree to do this. He said in an interview that he agreed to it because he just wanted to play a vampire. Just simple as that. I really want to meet this guy. He seems like a cool guy. Let me know what you think about Grandpires in the comments below. Also, let me know what other Haunting Hour episodes you want to see me talk about. I have a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early and maybe sometimes pictures of my cats. Like the video if you liked the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.